slow week. And like usually we do a bit up top that it's a slow week, but it's actually been kind of a slow news week so far.
Yeah, no coaches getting fired. No big trades. Mostly just people being mad at Joel Embiid. So
always a great way to start the week. Just waking up furious at a 7-foot tall Cameroonian man who you've never met in your life, but you know, you got to judge his character based on his actions, like not playing through an injury to keep HP basketball happy on Twitter, you know?
I don't I get it. I would get it a little bit like both ways. Like I get it if you're like a Nuggets fan and you're like kind of annoyed by this and you're like kind of taking shots, but the fact that it's kind of become a consensus position with like objective or people who are supposed to be objective is the thing that's kind of weird, you know?
Well, it's become a moral thing more so than it has become just about sports. It's become Joel Embiid is a bad person because he's choosing to sit out these games, as opposed to the team is choosing Joel's health long term over making Deion Sanders happy,
Right.
and keeping you know, the Nuggets reporters and the Nuggets people, and like you said, if you were a fan of the team, sure, slander back and forth. We do it all the time. We slander stars, we slander teams. It's all part of the fun. But it has become part of the to the point where Nick Nurse is in a press conference and one of the reporters is literally asking Nick Nurse what it says about Joel Embiid's character that he sat out this game.
That's such. I didn't realize that.
A Nuggets reporter asked him that at the thing. Like I said, Joel Embiid is a bad person because he's sitting out these games, is what the argument has now become. Which is like last week was like a fun slop week where like, you know, Doc Rivers gets hired, Adrian Griffin gets fired. We all laugh at Adrian Griffin because he's a bozo. Yeah. And, you know, there's all this fun stuff happening in the NBA. And then this last week has been like, if last week was slop Super Bowl, this week is like slop 9/11 for me, where it's like all of the talking points are designed to drive me fucking insane because
I thought you were going to say the slop Pro Bowl, and you said the slop 9/11, which was very.
They're about the same.
Which is worse, you know. If you had to pick one, I mean, hey, they're doing flag football. It's not even worth anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Participation trophies, basically. If you want to make it a moral boomer thing. But no, this is the worst because I now have to sit back and listen to the most unathletic people that have ever lived. Like people like me who would be, are you kidding me? You're not going to play at a high altitude and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just insane that we have now taken this and once again made it into a moral argument instead of you know, just competitive fun banter. We go back and forth. You know what I mean? Like I was upset that we didn't get to see him play because I wanted to see Jokic and Embiid play again. That game was great a week ago. And I think it's good for the NBA, just generally speaking. But the fact that this has devolved into that, and then on top of that, you also have the other arguments that are happening across the NBA is, do teams score too much? Do players score too much? Do you know, do we need to bring back the old rules? Everything this week has been designed to drive me fucking insane. And then on top of that, we also have the Devil Magic Brock Purdy 49ers playing against the Satan-led Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And I'm just like, I've never taken so many L's in a 1 week period.
Yeah, it's been brutal. I mean, I think that might be part of it because I think that this stuff is really like, you're seeing part of, this is something I kind of always remember about this time of the year. Not usually this close to the trade deadline because we have like a real reason for that, but like we do get this like dearth of discourse, right? And you sort of get people like inventing discourse. And I think that's what makes the Embiid thing so weird is it's like real like ringer, like something that would have a ringer article written about it it's taken that seriously, and it's essentially something that like one fan would say to another fan base to like make them mad.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
saying like it'd be like if we wrote up I'm trying to think of like it'd be like if somebody like wrote up like does Jason Tatum care about TikTok dances too much, and they posted that TikTok guy who looks kind of like Jason Tatum that people always post with the Jason Tatum do something. Like it's clearly like people like kind of getting even and like getting jokes off and trying to get a rise out of the other team. But it's so weird because I think the people who vote on this stuff and like do all this stuff kind of like take it personally that like Joel Embiid like quote unquote like tricked them last year because he's
Sure.
like because he's an MVP who doesn't have the playoff success to go with being MVP, right? And that's like the absolute.
You also have people like Seth Partnow, who is just like an absolute. He's just a freak about this all the time. Where he's going on Twitter at anytime Joel Embiid gets injured, he's like, "Oh, he's dodging," and it's like, dude, first off, your job as a commentator on this shit is not to say what Denver Nuggets fans say. Like your job as a commentator on this shit is to call. And I honestly think he's actually pretty good at that on his podcast, where he goes on and he talks pretty objectively about things. And then when it comes to Joel, everything goes out the window, and it just drives me fucking nuts because you're gonna get your W's anyway when we lose in the fucking second round again.
That's what
Why do you have to do it in January? Like that's what drives me so nuts. Like
brothers hold.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that the Sixers lose in the second round every year, and Joel's always injured in the playoffs, and everyone gets to get their jokes off then. We also can't enjoy January either. We're not allowed to have anything anymore. We're not allowed to enjoy Joel having this incredible scoring season. It all becomes a fucking laughing stock thing. And it's literally designed to drive me fucking insane, dude. Like, if you want to act like the regular season matters and you want to act like all this shit, if Joel played that game and he played awesome, the jokes would have been, oh, this was his Super Bowl. It's like, there's no way to win.
Yeah,
there's no way to win until you win in the second round. And guess what? Maybe he's never healthy enough. Maybe they're just not good enough to get to the conference finals or the finals. But like, I'm going to enjoy the times when he plays and when he plays well. And all these people that want to act like they're fucking professionals getting these fucking jokes off. It drives me absolutely fucking insane. Like like I said, if you're a fan of another fan base, totally fine. If you're going to a press conference and asking these questions, it's beyond me. If you're using your fucking platform where you try to act like you're the nerdy, oh, I'm the objective guy who uses numbers and blah, 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 and you're just using it to get jokes off about one of the best players in the NBA, fuck you. Anyway, let's continue. I'm in a good mood today. So
let's go. He's cooking. Let's get those fires going in chat. Let's get this. But I guess my thing as an objective observer about this is it's like, I don't have a fucking horse in this race. I enjoy when Joel goes doo-doo mode in the playoffs just as much as the next guy. But like, if you're someone whose job is at stake here and you have to pump out 1 billion articles during the regular season about like, well, Tyrese Haliburton's pick and roll is really at a new level. Like if you want people to take that seriously, then you have to play into. You can't have it both ways. You can't be a rings guy, show me the playoff success, and be someone who's like, the regular season matters, right? You got to kind of fucking like pick a lane. You've either got to be a Stephen A. Smith or a Skip Bayless or something like that, or you've got to be the objective person. And the fact that, it's the switch up is because Joel Embiid makes it hard to do both, right? Because you end up getting punked. That is the person that everyone. That's always been the worst. It's like the John Mulaney joke about the best thing you can be in the eyes of the New York Post is an angel, and an angel is a child who has died. Like in sports, the best thing you can be is a playoff riser, is like a hero, like a Caleb Martin or someone who rises in the moment or something like that. And the worst thing you can be, is
the front runner. in the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. Is a bozo, is a front runner, is a, whatever the case may be. And there's nothing and the true worst thing is when you're good for a long period of time, but the narrative doesn't change, because then there's nothing to write about. There's nothing to talk about. There's no media stuff. And that's what drives everyone insane, is it's like, I can't ignore this. I want the Pacers to be good now so I can write about that. I want I
think this regular season, even like everything aside with like all of I think this has been a good regular season. This has been the best regular season that I can remember in recent memory. Like,
just in terms of unpredictability and like, who's going to win night to night and who's good
teams. Like, when was the last time we had this many good teams in the NBA? And I get why Knicks fans are driven insane by the media acting like Jalen Brunson isn't having this all NBA top 12 player in the league level season, because, people are like laughing about the fact that he's like 6'1" or whatever. And like, the only player who's ever been the best player on a championship team is Steph Curry. That was that size of blah, blah, blah. But it kind of comes back to this whole point, which is that like if you want the regular season to matter, if you want people to care about the product in January and December and all that shit, then like, I think it's fine to sell. And look, I, once again, want Joel to play these games. Mm-hmm. The fact is that he has shifted his approach to the game, and the team has shifted their approach to the way that they manage his injuries because of all this. Because he's talked about it in interviews where he's like, I just want to win in the playoffs. I want to go deep into the playoffs. I've done the regular season shit. I've won an MVP. I've made all NBAs. I don't really care about that anymore. Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, then you're going to have things like this where he has to sit out, because this isn't this injury that he's specifically going through right now, his knee injury, doesn't sound like a one-off type thing. He has now re-injured it twice during the season. And it sounds like it's one of those things where it swells up and it could give him issues and pain and discomfort day to day. And if that is the issue, he's probably going to sit out a lot of games because of it, which leads us to our topic of conversation today, which is the all NBA rules and the MVP rules, which are, I just want to get this out of the way. I'm fine with the MVP rules overall. Like, I think if you're the MVP of the league, you have to play at least 65 games. Like, I think there's only been one, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here in the comments. I think there's been one player who played less than 65 games in a season and won MVP, and I believe it was Bill Walton the year after he won the championship. It was his second MVP in a row. He played 58 games and he got injured, and he was not able to finish the season, but he was clearly the best player in the NBA that season, kind of head and shoulders above everyone else, had his moment of winning a finals, was coming off an MVP, and then just leading into, kind of this whole conversation about like Joel not being eligible for MVP, all NBA, and how it's going to affect that. I'm fine with it, because I think if you do need to be the most available, like, I don't think availability is everything. I think you can, like, Joel won with 66 games last year. I believe Giannis won with like 70 games one year. I think you can miss 12 to 20 games, maybe less than 20 games, but 12 to whatever it is, 17 games, and still be the MVP of the league. Because if you're that good in the games like Joel has been when he's played this year, I'm fine with awarding someone with like that. If you play less than 65, I think you are getting to the point where like the availability does start to matter if we're talking about the best player in the NBA that season. Because if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, plays 79 games this year and Joel Embiid plays 62, even if Joel's way better than Shai, that difference in games is a really big factor here in terms of how much you actually help your team during the season. So I think for MVP, it's totally fine. Where I don't really like this rule is the All-NBA stuff, because now we're looking at Haliburton and Embiid, who are both on the verge of basically being ineligible for All-NBA this season. And there's no way that you can write a story in history about this season and not include Tyrese Haliburton and Joel Embiid as two of the 15 best players. Like, it just doesn't it doesn't really make any sense, because then you're starting to go down further and further down the line where you're rewarding guys that, look, they're good players, but like, especially with this new rule where you're adding in the positionless factor, the point of that was to give the 15 best players in the NBA the recognition. And now we're going to get to the point where it's like, guys who had really good seasons, but in normal years wouldn't make all NBA, are going to make all NBA over guys like Joel, who's having a historic season, and Haliburton, who's made this massive leap for the Pacers. And I just think that if we're talking about all NBA, especially when it comes to like affecting player salaries and stuff like that, like I think the difference between Haliburton making and missing this is $50 million. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I saw this on there. Could be potentially $50 million. Now, the odds of him making another one at some point, I'm sure, are pretty likely, and I'm sure that he'll get some of that money back. But I don't know. I don't really think that you should punish players 17 games when you're scheduling some of these guys, like, you have 4 games in 6 days, sometimes 5 games in 8 days. Like, you miss 2 weeks in the wrong part of the season and you're missing 15 games easy, 2-3 weeks. Yeah. So I just don't agree with that in terms of if you're trying to make a case for the 15 best players in the NBA. 65 games is like, you got to lower that to like 60 at least. I think you got to give a 20 game cushion if you're going to make the schedule the way that it is right now.
Well, I guess that's just like the issue is we have this fight where, like we're trying to keep high quality basketball. Meanwhile, basketball is being played. It's a completely different sport from what it even was like 30 years ago. It's just one of the key things that I think people are missing. Like, it was a little bit rougher, but it also, like, guys were not moving the same way. Guys weren't covering the same amount of ground. Like, the amount of spacing that's going on in the league, guys are playing way different. It's something where even with like the advances that we've had in sports science, it's just fundamentally different. It's a better product night in, night out. But you've also got to understand that better product probably comes with some costs. Like, it's either going to be two prongs.
No, I was laughing. I was laughing at SH saying don't go to boomerang, because this is the opposite of a boomerang. The reason we have these rules is because of the boomers and the owners who are boomers, right, that own the teams.
Well, I mean, because the NBA just wants money. Okay, like that's fine. Like, and that's not supposed to be some kind of. I'm not even like getting on my communist soapbox here. Like, that's just it. That just is what it is. Like, that's the reason this whole thing is here. That's sports. It doesn't have to be a weird thing. Like, everything's about money in this country, and that's fine. You don't have to shake your fist at that all the time. But there's got to be different ways to get everyone the same amount of money without impacting the guys the same way and something. That's honestly why I didn't think the IST was like a bad idea. Like, because it honestly did inject like a little bit of like life into these games, and made it a little bit like different. I think another thing that honestly, I hate to give Europeans any credit. It disgusts me in all ways, but soccer, man, like the like having like the 3 different championships with like the big tournament, like the FA Cup, you have the regular season championship, and then you have like essentially the playoffs, and you have all of those things are all kind of like separated out. Something like that also probably makes a little bit of sense. I know it's the one that matters the least. Whatever. It's the same. It's the one where the bad teams can win, though, and that's what's exciting. People like that shit. That's why March Madness like shows up every time. They want to see.
I mean, it's why we love the in-season tournament and the play-in. Like single elimination shit, no matter who is playing, is a fun, good product for everyone. And I think that they'll continue to add in things like that. But like, I look at like it's funny you bring up the in-season tournament, because like we talked about this earlier where like the Pacers and the Lakers ramped all the way up for those games, right? Like they were like playing like it was the NBA playoffs basically. Right. And Larry David had his whole thing about how he's like, you can't ramp up that early in the season and then ramp down. And I do think that, look, Haliburton's a guy who's missed a lot of games in the past. It's not like this is an individual, like, isolated incident with him. I don't believe he's ever played over 65 games in his career. Yeah, his career high before this year was 58. So it's not like this hasn't happened in other years. But like I said, you're talking about two guys who have been arguably 5 or 6 of the main highlights of your season, with Haliburton taking his team in all the way to the finals against LeBron in the in-season tournament, and Joel Embiid, who, if you remove the games played requirement and just looked at who's been the best player this season, would be, at worst case scenario, the second best player, probably the best player in the NBA. And you can't tell the story of this season without including both of those guys on All NBA, is my thing. And I look, Haliburton has missed 13 games so far, and he has played in 34. And as Zyklor pointed out in the comments, Pacers fan, he actually needs to make it this season. It's more imperative for him because of the Rose Rule extension, where if you make an All-NBA on your rookie extension, then you end up getting, like I said, I think it's almost $50 million difference for Tyrese Haliburton. And I don't think that anyone, I think the Pacers would be happy to pay him that money. I don't think anyone would be upset with him making that. And because of these rules, you're now looking at a situation where he probably won't make All-NBA. He can miss like 4 or 5 more games going forward.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And it's like, same with Joel. I think Joel could only miss 5 more, and he probably will miss again tonight against the Warriors, so it will probably be 4. So, like, we're going to get to the end of the season, and, like, the one thing that does help here is the fact that we're in such a talent boom that I don't think it's going to seem insane when we look back in 10 years and see who made third team All-NBA. Because if you remove the positionless factor, if you remove the position factor, it's not like we have to give, like, the 5th best center in the NBA third team All-NBA or something. There still probably will be very good players that are included on that third team. It will probably be a little bit more guard heavy, I would imagine, with Joel missing and with, the way that the guards have just played amazing this year in the NBA. But I don't know. It leaves a wrong taste in my mouth when I understand they're trying to make more incentives for players to play games, but it's not like Tyrese Haliburton and Joel Embiid don't want to play these games. Like, I feel like Kawhi Leonard, who's always been kind of the villain of this whole thing, who, by the way, has a degenerative knee issue, as I've said like 100 times before.
Yeah.
I feel like the fact that he missed so many games and they were so careful about him for so many years after he did injure that knee just kind of broke everyone's brain in terms of he doesn't want to play. It didn't become about his knee becoming a chronic issue. It was more about, like I said, it became a moral thing. And, like, Joel wants to play through these injuries. He said it before because he wants to stay in shape and he doesn't like missing time. And it's not like Haliburton, Haliburton tried to come back and he had to instantly go back out again because it's a hamstring injury. It can flare up, but he doesn't want to miss out on this, this thing because he missed 20 games in a season when guys that are going to now make the third team who, like I said, it just, everything's just becoming about availability now. And it's not about what you do on the court. It's about how healthy you are. And it's about how available you are. It's not like they're missing 35 games. Like, I don't know. I just think that in 10, 15 years, they'll probably change the rule sometime soon. I would imagine maybe in the next few years. But I think in 10 to 15 years, we're going to look back and be like, how did Joel Embiid and Tyrese Haliburton not make All-NBA this season?
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing is it's like, I guess just it's like, on the one hand, like, you do kind of like, you do quote unquote like need to perform, you know what I'm saying? And I do genuinely believe in that. But the fact is that we've tied performance so much to the playoffs, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you like make the All-NBA part of this and then nobody can vote until like after the playoffs, you know what I'm saying? Because Jimmy Butler would make first team All-NBA every year if we did the vote after the playoffs. Like,
if we did all playoff teams, yes.
Well, honestly though, but I think just like once everyone's seeing it, you know what I'm saying? Once we're seeing the the spec of the season, like, I don't know. I really just don't feel like people remember that stuff very much, except for like their own team. Like these broad strokes of things, like you kind of need to, people do need things broken down into like a moment. That's why the national TV games are so important and some of this stuff. Cause like you need to kind of have these moments in times when people are like invested in the game. I know me personally, even if something's a highlight, it doesn't stick with me as much as if I'm like watching a full game and then I see something insane happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you see it later on the highlights, it doesn't really like matter as much. And I think that what we're like really talking around is kind of the power that sports media like sort of has, but they don't really get it. You know what I'm saying? And they also are kind of getting played by Adam Silver too, to like parrot like what's going to be in the best interest of the NBA and their money, you know? And those two things don't even necessarily need to be at odds. They are most of the time, but they don't even necessarily need to be at odds like all the time. So I don't know. It's very annoying and stupid. And again, I think the reason this is coming up is because we're heading into the dead part of the NBA, you know, season. Once we get over the trade deadline here, and once we like get to see all the new trades and how everybody looks after that, we get into, you know, our beautiful Mickey Mouse March, and it gets tough.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that the fact that like you said, the ownership part of it is really what kind of drives me insane, because the owners clearly fleeced in the CBA, like we've talked about 100 times.
Yeah.
And I just think 65 is too much. Like, I know that you don't want guys missing a ton of time, but like, I don't think that is a ton of time with the way that you break down the schedule. And I think in the long run, it's going to be a mistake when we look back at the season and we see who made All NBA. And for people that really care about the history shit, like Bill Simmons claims to love this history stuff, and it's part of the reason why he didn't like the position list thing. And I actually kind of get that. I understand you wanted to see who were the 5 best at this, who were the 5 best at this spot, you know, just kind of generally when you look back at a season. But now we're not going to get that because of these new rules. Like, you've moved the goalposts in a way that it hurts. It hurts the players who are now going to, like guys like Tyrese Haliburton, who are now going to lose out on money. And it hurts when you're looking back at historical shit to, you know, just kind of reflect on this season and say who are the best players. So that's it.
Honestly, I don't think you need the rule, because the old way was fine because they already got penalized for it. You had freaks like Bill who would do this to guys anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, Bill would look at games played
Bill's
like, no, I'm not.
But Bill's line was 58 games. He said, if you, I can't even remember the reasoning. I think it was because Bernard King. I think it was. Do you remember this? He was like,
"That's such a Bill. That is such a Billism to be like. Remember one
like,
season
in 1984,
and be like, that's the right amount."
Bernard King was one of the best players in the NBA, and he played 58 games, and he made All NBA, and that was the line. It was like the Bernard King line, and like I know this because he always brings it up when like Kevin Durant, and the only argument that I'll hear against this, and someone brought this up on Twitter, and I understand where they're coming from, where he's this person said in response to my tweet about this, they said the only reason why I like this rule is because it makes it so that guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron James and all these like older guys that miss a ton of time can't take away spots from younger players who actually have the contract incentives now built into their contracts. And I think that's a good point. Yeah. But I also think that's why you just need to separate the fucking contract incentives, because like I said, one, it would just be funny. Wouldn't it be funny if we had like 10 Tobias Harris contracts? like it wouldn't be, might not be fair, but it would be funny as shit if we just had Troy Weaver handing out a new Tobias Harris contract every 2 to 3 years. Just because he didn't make All NBA doesn't mean that he can't have that.
It would be pretty funny if Grayson Allen was making $30 million here in like 2 years. Like that would be pretty amazing, I think. Hilarious.
With the way that he's playing this season, he might
that's be what I was trying to think available. That's what I'm saying. I was trying to think of who's like playing the most above their head this season, and that's who I came up with.
Well, that's Chiodo's plan for the deadline. We'll talk about the deadline a little bit deeper. His plan for the Sixers for the deadline is number 1, Dejounte Murray, and then number 2, just a white guy. So Grayson Allen potential. I think he's too important to the Suns now for them to trade him. I think he's making $10 million this year, and he's playing, like you said, like not 30 million, but he's playing like a $15-20 million a year player. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we move forward here towards the deadline. But did you hear Kendrick Perkins on Zach Lowe today?
No.
I'm so glad you didn't listen, because you'll get to hear Ken. So Zach has Perk on for literally just like the last like 15 minutes of the podcast. And
that's probably all Zach was willing to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure like ESPN was like, you got to have Perk on, and
he's like, yeah,
fine. But like only the last 15 minutes.
He didn't disappoint though. Like he was on his Mariano Rivera coming out with a fucking
Enter Sandman.
Yeah. So we asked him to come up with a fake trade. I'm sorry, a hot take.
Oh man.
He's like, it could deal with the trade deadline. It could be about a team. It could be about a player, whatever. So Perk came in, guns blazing, and said, look at the Miami Heat right now.
Okay.
Look at where they're standing where they are in the standings. They've lost 7 games in a row.
By the way, that's happened since Haslam said that Bill Russell wasn't good. So
has they really not won since then?
Yeah, they haven't. According to a tweet I saw earlier today.
Wow, he upset Boston Nneka Okongwu, and
the Boston media mafia strikes again. Putting them out
that actually is incredible. I didn't know they had shooters like that. That they can actually affect the game down to them losing to the Heat, losing to Scottie Pippen Jr. and Vince Williams Jr. as the best 2 players. But
they're stirring barbiturates into their hotel food the night before. Like it's like The Killer, the Fincher movie, or not? No, is it Fincher? Yeah. I can't remember, but putting all the stuff in the. You just have one guy going around poisoning them every time they go in there. Can't say that about Bill Russell.
Incredible work by the Boston media mafia. They're always outdoing themselves. But Perk goes on the podcast to talk about Jimmy Butler. And he's like, Jimmy's 34. The Heat are down in the standings. I think there are 4 teams that can beat them: the Sixers, the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Knicks. I think that it would behoove the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler to part ways and for them to trade him at this deadline.
Let's go.
I was like, that's a heater, dude. That's a after the way most kind of betas in the media are like, I'm afraid of the Heat. I said this on fucking Twitter last night. I was like, everyone, like, I listen to all these podcasts, and people do a great job breaking down the strengths and weaknesses of all these different teams. The Bucks defense and the Sixers shot creation and the Celtics. Is Porzingis's ankle going to be attached by the time we come to the playoffs? All that stuff. And then we get to the Miami Heat, and everyone except for, shout out to Pound the Rock, who objectively does this very well. Everyone but a few podcasts, anytime we get to the Heat, the only thing that they'll say is, well, they're not afraid of anyone. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That's not good enough. I know that Satan is powerful. I know that Satan and his devil magic that he has bestowed upon the Miami Heat can never be questioned. But last year, we have a trade.
Oh,
no way. Miles Bridges and Nick Richards for
the nasty man is heading to Phoenix.
Oh, it's fake. It's fake. We just got duped.
Oh, never mind. Yep. Duped. Oh. All right.
Can you guys stop sending in fake tweets during, like, it's really distracting. This is like the 3rd time this has happened.
We love slop. We love real slop, and you can't.
Yeah.
And you can't do this. Come on.
Yeah. It's actually a realistic trade too, because I've heard Miles Bridges get attached to.
Yeah.
This is the 3rd time we've gotten fucking ball sacked in a fucking stream. Which, by the way,
we're not getting ball sacked. We're trusting the Hogs.
Yeah.
You demons come in here.
All I'm telling you, LeBron Factory, who commented that, is that I have the ability to ban you from here. So just keep that in mind. So we don't fuck around when it comes to slop. But anyway, the Miami Heat are, like I said, you can't question the Devil Magic. You can't question everything that's happening. They've lost 7 games in a row, and they just made the Terry Rozier trade, and I think they're 0-4 with Terry Rozier now.
Sleeper agent.
And yeah, clearly. And
long con, 5-year long con, 6-year long con.
If you are the Heat and you're approaching this deadline, they've already made one move. Do you make another move? Do you go, like, we heard rumors that they could be interested in Dorian Finney-Smith. That's a guy that we're going to talk about in this next section. Do you make another move knowing that Jimmy Butler's prime years are winding down? Because, like I said, I don't see them. I think last year was an outlier. I think they got incredibly hot at the right time. Jimmy played out of his mind in the first round. Giannis got hurt. They ran into a favorable matchup with the Knicks, and the Celtics, if the Celtics are healthy, I think the gap between the Celtics and the Heat this year, which would likely be the first round series, by the way, the Heat are on the verge of falling to the 8 seed right now. So that would probably be the first round series. And I know you're like, what, the gap between those two teams this year versus last year, you're talking about a Celtics team that almost lost to the Sixers, a team that they have historically owned. You're talking about a Celtics team that it took 6 games to beat a Hawks team that they realistically should have beaten 4 or 5. Okay. And then this year you have the Porzingis improvement. In addition to that, you also have Drew Holiday brought in. I know Drew kind of sucks against the Heat. That is the one thing that would scare me a little bit in that series. Mm-hmm. But like, I think the gap between those two teams, so you're looking at a path where it's like Celtics first round and then probably the Sixers or the Cavs or the Knicks or the Bucks in the second round, and then whoever comes out on the other end in the Eastern Conference Finals. If you're the Heat, like, is the gap, are you just rolling with the team you have now and not spending any more assets on this, kind of similar to how we've talked about the Lakers? Because they've already traded one first. I think they only have one other available first they could trade at this deadline. Or are you just like waiting until the summer to be like, let's see what happens with Jimmy in the summer?
I'm on record as saying I wanted them to get Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Because I did not think they had the juice, and I think it would have ruined their franchise. For the same reason, I'm going to say I hope they keep Jimmy and they like keep this charade going, because it's I think the worst, as a Celtics fan, the worst thing for me would be if they traded Jimmy Butler and reloaded around Bam and like got another younger star. So
so you're saying that they loaded up and they got like Donovan Mitchell or something.
Yes, yeah. If they swapped Jimmy out for like, I don't know, Donovan Mitchell's a fraud though. Like if they, I don't know, when the Bucks thing falls apart, if they like reload for Giannis or something. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what they would need to do. But they've already, like, are they willing to be like, oh, so why did we buy with Terry Rozier if we're just going to trade Jimmy Butler? You know, that would be the
That's
obvious.
What doesn't make sense. Because look, I have heard the Jimmy Butler stuff like behind the scenes. I've been skeptical of it, about like whether he. So the thing with Jimmy Butler is that 2 years out from every contract, he reworks his contract with the Heat. He's done this twice now, I believe, to extend early with the Heat. Mm-hmm. So he picks up the option on his last year and then he extends off that to get extra money. The difference between that now and where it was before is that right now he would be 38 years old on the last year of that contract, making like $60 million a year. So that's the difference between where, like, before you're like, all right, well, Jimmy will be like 34, 35, and then maybe 36 in his last few years of his contract. Even if he falls off a little bit, he's still one of the best players in the NBA. And you have this scenario where you can live with, even if he falls off a little bit, either trading the contract or just riding it out. But now the Heat have a decision to make where, like Perk said on the podcast, Jaime Jaquez, I know he's a little bit older for a rookie and some of the stuff's been overblown. Like I've said, like, I don't think he's like a superstar or anything, but like, look, he could be a guy that makes some all-star teams or something. And you have Bam, and then you have like whatever. why did you trade for Terry Rozier in the middle of the season? Why did you become buyers if you could potentially trade Jimmy? Maybe they just, like I said, maybe they just believe so much in the culture thing, and they believe so much in keeping a competitive team that they wanted Terry Rozier whether they keep Jimmy Butler or not, is what I'm trying to get at here. Like, whether they ever consider moving Jimmy down the line, they're like, well, we're still going to want to have good players. We don't tank that work. And we also we've traded two of our first. And my question is, did they really trade for Terry? I'm just that we've had so little slop over the past few days that I'm starting to like my conspiracy brain.
Yeah, right.
Conspiracy trail.
Charlie with the
trail.
Yeah.
There we go. Did they trade for Terry Rozier in order to trade Tyler Herro is my question. And I think that's the real answer.
Tyler Herro broke a land speed record for people saying that they're sacrificing. It is sort of did you see that? Yeah.
3 games with Terry Rozier.
Yeah.
I'm catching and shooting more.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, brother, you were number 1 in field goals on your team. So write that down. You weren't sacrificing shit. So I don't know. I mean, I think that is kind of where he's their obvious trade piece for what they would trade to a better team, you know what I'm saying? Like a team that had a good player who's better than Tyler Herro, but wanted a young player who's under contract back. You know what I'm saying? Like that is Tyler Herro would fit that. But my thing is I think that the reason they couldn't get the Damian Lillard trade done in the first place is because nobody wanted Tyler Herro. And I mean, given he's played better this year, you know what I'm saying? I think he has more trade value now than he did.
He started better.
Has he been bad recently?
His stats are the exact same as they were last year. He's the same player. Like he started the year great and was shooting really well and and look, I'm sure if you watch every game, you could see little improvements in his game.
Yeah.
But also, that's what you would expect from a guy who's 24 years old. And if you were looking at this scenario where you're trying to say, did he make a big step? I don't think it's a big step. I think it's just a natural improvement that most young players make. And I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's just it's an archetype that teams don't really want, that we've learned. You know what I mean? Good scorer, not great scorer, not hyper efficient, defensive questions. I mean, we were watching the game the other night. I can't even remember who they were playing in that game. Oh, it was the Knicks game. In the Knicks game, Terry Rozier was on the court with Tyler Herro basically the whole time. And the entire time the Knicks were hunting Herro on switches. And I was like, if Terry Rozier, who is not quite the defender he used to be and is 6'1", is on the court, and you're 6'5", and you're still getting hunted, that's in the scouting report. Teams know to attack him over and over and over again, especially with bigger guys. And I think that we have said, as we've said on this podcast for the last 2 years, when he gets hurt in the playoffs, they tend to perform a little bit better because it ratchets up their team defense a notch. And it makes, Duncan Robinson in a vacuum might not be a better player than Tyler Herro, but he's not going to take up a bunch of on-ball touches. He's going to allow you to run your offense through your best guys, and he's going to be a threat off of the ball and away from the play in a way that Tyler Herro doesn't really buy into. So I think that maybe it's the Nets if they were to move him, because the Nets were tied to him in the past. We also don't know if the Nets really wanted him or if the Nets were just we'll take the contract if you give us a first round pick. And I don't think the Heat are going to do that unless they're getting back better players. They're only going to do that if they're getting Damian Lillard, or if they don't even have the ability to attach multiple firsts now, but if they attach multiple firsts and got back Cam Johnson or something, maybe you could do Dorian Finney-Smith and Royce O'Neal plus filler for Tyler Herro. I think the Nets would just prefer to either trade Dorian Finney-Smith for picks or just keep Dorian Finney-Smith, to be completely honest with you. But I don't know. I kind of look at the situation where I'm with the Heat, where I don't really know what to do with them at this deadline. I don't think that they should be making all-in moves, but if they can get use one more first round pick and protect it pretty heavily and get a Dorian Finney-Smith or whoever, sure. But I don't know. I just think that they're so far away from becoming a team. Could they be a team that gets into the playoffs and sneaks in and gives the 1 or the 2 seed some problems in the first round? Absolutely. I mean, you have the best coach in the NBA. You have multiple guys who have performed better in the playoffs than they have in the regular season, but they haven't really figured out a way to replace the production that they got from certain guys last year. And I kind of think that this is probably more of a year where they're the sneaky team no one wants to face, and then they get wiped out in the first round. I think the Knicks would. I can't believe I'm saying this. I think the Knicks would destroy them this year, which is wild because last year I felt the complete opposite. Like I picked the Heat in that series once the Heat went devil mode.
Yeah, I don't. I think that. I don't know. Like I know I'm tempting fate here, but I'll just say that they really are over. They should have been over last year, but Giannis got hurt, and then that was that. And like they were the luckiest that anyone's ever been last year. So who knows? Let's clip this. Check me out in April. Let's see what happens.
Stake your claim on this, but
say a thing right now. We'll see when the Heat we're going to Game 6 in Miami with the Celtics down 3-2 in the 8-1 matchup.
Well, Porzingis is back already tonight, so I don't think that injury was that serious. It's just. Like I said, like if I were the Celtics, I would be keeping Porzingis in a fucking chamber leading up to the playoffs and only letting him out when he can come in and stay in game shape for a few games before the playoffs begin here. So
yeah, RPG combat. I'm using recovery items on Porzingis in between every turn. We're hitting him with another potion. Yep. We're hitting him with another. We're using the Phoenix down on him to revive him after every injury. We're using all of them. So
yeah, you're spending everything you have to make sure that Porzingis is healthy for a Miami Heat series, especially because I think that the thing that Bill has gotten right and Zach have gotten right, a lot of the media has gotten right, is that. It's clear that Porzingis is kind of the thing that really takes the Celtics up a level where it just becomes so hard. And it's really because of the stuff that you've talked about before with guys like Kelly Olynyk, where he inverts the floor a lot because he's a willing. I know his shooting's a little bit overrated because he's a willing 3-point shooter. You can't block his 3-point shot, and he shoots very far out, so he can space to close to like the logo. And then you're having to sacrifice where it's like, all right, if that's your center and he can hold up on the other end defensively, then where do you put your center on offense? And the answer is probably going to be on Drew Holiday in the corner. And you're just going to have to hope that Drew goes playoff mode Drew and misses every fucking shot he takes, which there's a chance that happens.
Not a bad bet.
There's certainly a chance that happens. There's also a chance that he gets better shots with the Celtics and he shoots 37 or 38%. And that's still a good outcome if that's, your worst 3-point shooter that you're putting on the court at all times. So for a Heat series specifically, it's funny because I mean, we've talked about Horford a little bit. Like, anytime I watch the Celtics, I'm like, man, Horford just does not look the same in the regular. Like but I know that in a Buck series or a Sixer series, Horford's very important. Porzingis is like a guy that obviously is way levels above where Horford is at this point in his career, but he's a guy that in a Heat series makes that matchup just completely untenable for Miami. So if he's healthy, I think that's an easy one, and I think that Horford is way more important for a Bucks or a Sixers series because of the way that he's just been able to guard Giannis and Embiid historically. So we'll see what happens when we get closer to the playoffs here with everyone's health. But that's just kind of my general thoughts on the Heat and how they match up with the rest of the teams in the East right now.
Speaking of doo-doo mode, do we want to talk about the coaching debut for Doc Rivers?
I mean, there's not really much to talk about. They played a really good Denver team. Look, Denver, I don't think Denver's quite as unbeatable as a lot of people do. I watched a lot of their games, and I'm like, I think someone could beat this team. I also think they're probably cruising a little bit right now, and they turn up in the fourth quarter every time, and they win these close games and whatever. But like the thing with the Doc game, the only funny part about the Doc thing to me was that he was just like, and I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like a little bit of it. I watched like mostly like the second and the fourth quarter. But the funny thing to me was that Doc was just like talking. He was talking about how it was an offensive loss, and it was true. Like Bobby Portis played like shit, which I think Doc's gonna love Bobby Portis. Like that's like a classic Doc guy. Like,
that's a Doc guy. Yeah. That is a Doc guy. Yeah.
Almost 30 years old, for a big guy that could score.
Probably guys on the bench who would play better than him, but they're young, so you can't play them. Yeah,
exactly. So, that's the thing. Well, I said this in the Discord earlier, and I said the Bucks might be the one team where it's actually perfectly made for Doc, because their young guys might actually suck. Like they have Andre Jackson Jr.
That's what I was gonna say.
He might be good. Like I don't want to write off all of them, but like Marshawn Beauchamp was like 24 almost. Like
I guess that's
true. I think he turned 23 a few months ago.
I've seen him play like okay. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I know that he's not. The Andre Jackson Jr. was the one I was thinking about when I said that. Yeah.
Andre Jackson Jr. is definitely someone that I think. Like, but the Doc said in the press conference, one of these guys is going to have to help us, and then he didn't play them at all in their first game,
so funny.
Which I got a kick out of. But it was really funny. It was like Doc was like, this was an offensive loss. I didn't really think our defense was the problem in this game, and their defense definitely looked better from an energy and effort standpoint at a minimum. But he was saying it right next to a thing that said like the Nuggets had 60 points in the paint. And that they shot like, I think the Nuggets made like 4 or 5 threes. Maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was like 7 or 8 threes the whole game. And the Bucks made like 19 or something. And it was
make or miss league.
It was just funny, like seeing the difference between the shooting on each side, and then Doc calling it an offensive loss because it wasn't a super high scoring game. But no, look, I don't really take much from one game. Yeah, the Nuggets were 4 for 18 from 3 in that game. And I was like, I think that's just a shit shooting night from the like that's a team that shoots threes really well. They don't take a ton, but like I maybe part of it was the Bucks making sure that they couldn't shoot easy threes. But I don't know. I wouldn't be victory lapping the defense after one game. It was my point here.
Yeah. I think I remain unmoved by the Bucks, and maybe that'll come back to haunt me. I think honestly, I think it's the Sixers. I'm starting to think that the Knicks are probably the next, like they might be the third biggest threat in the playoffs. And I know
they've been really good
on that team. Yeah, but like the OG and Anunoby Knicks, man, like they're really fucking good. Like Will might have to victory lap the RJ Barrett identifier. Like they've been back. Like
I know we like to make fun of Knicks fans a lot, but I would be going insane if Jalen Brunson was on my team and he didn't make the All-Star starters over Damian Lillard. Like if you remove
Candace Parker did that. Personally, she walked into the voting thing. She rigged the election for Joe Biden and for who else? Who I don't even remember who got in over him. Who was it? Damian Lillard.
Okay, so Damian Lillard, if you just did if you removed their names from their like all-star resume or whatever. This season, Jalen Brunson is averaging 26.7 points on 48% from the field, 42% from 3, 3.9 rebounds, 6.5 assists. While Damian Lillard is currently averaging, it's not even close, dude. Like Dame is averaging 25 points a game, so almost 2 less points a game, on 42% from the field, 34% from 3, which has got to be one of the lowest of his career as a 3-point shooter for Dame. 4.3 rebounds and 6.8 assists. So it just feels like it feels like if I were, like I said, if I were a Knicks fan, it would be driving me insane that Damian Lillard made the All-Star team over him. Maybe Damian Lillard was phoning it in a little bit because he hated the coach. I'm a little bit skeptical on that. I mean, it's not like he's really balled out since the coach was fired. And they've had a few games under their belt here. He's still incredibly inefficient from the field, except for that Pelicans game where they absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah.
So, look, he's still Dame's still a really good player, but it's just like the idea of why they brought him in was that it would make their offense unstoppable, and maybe it does when we get to the playoffs. And I know that they've been one of the top offenses in the NBA this season, but the things that he takes away from your defense, probably not great if you're trying to build a championship level roster. So, let's get into our predictions for the deadline, because it's kind of been slow recently. Yeah, Dame's lowest 3-point percentage since 2014-2015 this year, shooting 34%. And I saw Sam Morrill's tweet about this was great. He said that Dame finally getting a start. Do you know this is the first time he's ever started in the All-Star game?
No, but that kind of makes sense when you think about
who's
it.
in the West.
He and
yeah.
Steph, yeah, like Steph and like Luka came along later on, like, and that's pretty much it.
Well, and then he also,
because those guys are just
early in his career, I
better
think he was going
him.
up against like Kobe and Harden and shit. Like,
so those guys are all unequivocally better than him.
Yeah.
So that's like not that crazy to me.
Yeah.
To be honest,
like it isn't. But the Sam Morrill's joke about it was great. He said this is like when they gave Pacino the Oscar for Scent of a Woman.
yeah. That is gotta make it up to somebody somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually. So
Leo winning for Revenant would be the other one.
There was
more recent example.
There was a music example of this too, where they gave like, I can't remember, it was like a Grammy. They gave it to like, it was a Lifetime Achievement Award essentially, but the album fucking sucked. But yeah, so let's get into
I wish I could have remembered the Macklemore album to make that land that joke. I don't even remember the name
Heist?
of it. The Heist, there we go. Yeah,
the Heist winning over, which won over
Good Kid, Mad City, which is so funny.
It also won over a bunch of big and Kanye with Yeezus.
Yeah,
but it also won over a Jay-Z album that sucked, Magna Carta. Like compared to the rest of Jay-Z's discography, that album's not good at all. And then it also won over. There was one other. Oh, it was Drake. It won over, which was like an even bigger album than Macklemore's album. Nothing was the same. It was like a historically good year for people, and Macklemore won that season.
So funny, incredible. Dude. And then he tweeted. Do you remember? Yeah, he texted Kendrick Lamar, and it's like, "I robbed you. I'm sorry." Like, and then he posted it on Instagram.
Yeah, and then
dude, he rules.
And then on his next album, he made the intro to his album called White Privilege, and he wrote. Oh no, I'm sorry. White Privilege was on there, but the intro to the album had like a part about like sending the text, and then he had a song called White Privilege later. Yeah, he's a king, dude. Absolute king.
Yeah.
Shut up, Macklemore, dude.
I can't believe who would have thought that he musically continued to not do it, but very funny.
So we're now gonna predict. So this is just gonna be, I'm gonna say a name during this stretch. And we're just going to talk about, because like I said, there hasn't really been much slop recently. There really hasn't been anything that like is huge news. So we're just kind of going to go down the big names that could potentially be available at this deadline. And I'm going to give you a name, and then we'll discuss whether we think they get traded. And if they do get traded, where do they get traded to? So it's basically a stay or go. And if they do go, where do they land? So let's start up top actually with there was one real report. We actually got a real report about Andrew Wiggins and the Golden State Warriors from I can't remember who reported it, but it was someone who's plugged in with the Warriors, writes for The Athletic. I can't remember his name, but long story short here, Slater, that was it. Thank you.
Right.
Slater reported and said that Wiggins is probably going to get moved at this deadline. They're open to taking calls on him, and it sounds like they're not going to have to give up a pick to do it. It sounds like there could be teams that would either be willing to send expiring salaries or longer money. Look, all I'm saying is if Slater's reporting this, I think that it's more likely going to be a salary dump. Like, I think it's going to be, let's get him off our books.
What is that even going to be? Is it like Dallas or something like that? Like
Dallas was the team that we had thought before, but they don't really have any expiring salaries. The team that Bert's is bringing up in the comments is the Hornets could be a team that could potentially take him on, I think.
Oh, that's depressing.
I mean, I
don't want that for Andrew Wiggins' mental health, man. Like, that's going from San Francisco to like
the MK Ultra team.
Yeah, the MK Ultra team. Like, no offense to Charlotte. Charlotte's a fine city, but like just being a part of the Hornets organization seems to do bad things to people. So I don't want that for young Andrew.
So
who's like 2 years younger than me, but
2 years. Andrew Wiggins?
Yeah, isn't he like 32? Or am I making that up?
No, he's like 29.
Oh, okay, never mind. He is.
Yeah. I was like, he's 28. Yeah.
He's 28? Really? I guess he was 19 in that draft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's going to be going on 29 soon for sure. Okay. But yeah, he was the Embiid draft. Yeah, him and Wiggins. So the he's spiritually 35. There you go. That's it.
That's what I'm reading vibes.
Yeah. It's like I heard Brandon Ingram talk for the first time the other day, and I was taken back. He sounds like he's like 55 years old. He sounds like he's been smoking his whole life. But the salary dump structure could easily work with the Hornets because they now have Kyle Lowry's expiring, who they just got. They probably wouldn't work with the Warriors, but maybe that goes to a third team. Money goes back there. You also have the Gordon Hayward expiring, and you have this Cody Martin contract that's like partially guaranteed. I can't even remember, but it's not a lot of money. But one of the fake trades someone came up with was Gordon Hayward, Cody Martin for Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, and Gary Payton II. I actually think that kind of makes sense if you're the Hornets and you're just like, let's take a flyer on Moses Moody. They get off the money. We send them Hayward, who we're probably either going to trade or buy out anyway, and Cody Martin, who's not a part of our core and is like could probably help a team like the Warriors more than us.
Yeah, and don't they is LaMelo's extension kicking in, or is it already kicked in? Like, so I don't think they weren't gonna have cap space anyway necessarily. I don't think.
Yeah, like coming up on his extension.
Yeah, so they don't. Like it's not like they were not that they ever like do anything with it, but
that's what I was gonna say. First, because they're the only team that can't do anything with cap space.
Like, I mean, they did get Gordon Hayward with it from the Celtics
and Terry Rozier.
Yeah, well, Terry Rozier was kind of a sign-in trade thing, but they just like straight up signed like Gordon Hayward away from the Celtics.
Who would sadly be one of like what if you were to rank it one of the 10 best free agents that has moved over the last since 2020. It's
they signed him to the offer sheet too. People forget about that when the Jazz were being cheap and the Hornets were the ones who signed him to that offer sheet, and it was a year early, and that's how the Celtics were able to get him because it was only a 4-year extension. But anyway, sorry.
But yeah, and then they also they overpaid Batum all those years ago. People have pointed out. Yeah, all I'll say is this. They have acquired more players that were good for them than the Sixers have in the last like 20 years. Like all the players that the Sixers have signed in free agency, which is why I think this cap space plan is fake and I hate it so much, is because it's like Al Horford, who was a double agent for the Celtics, Elton Brand, who was always hurt and just could never play. And that's pretty much it for these. Like I literally, there's an argument that like, this version, like George Niang might be like the best guy, or like this version of like Patrick Beverly or Kelly Oubre are like massive hits for us in free agency compared to what Charlotte has gotten like some pretty good things. But long story short here, Wiggins could potentially go there on a salary dump. And if you are the Hornets, like you're like, all right, it's basically the exact conversation that we've had about Harrison Barnes, where it's like if they trade Harrison Barnes, maybe he goes to like Washington for Kuzma or something, and then they can try to like rehab his value and trade him in like a year and a half or 2 years to a team that's good. And he can help that team. Like, I don't think that they're like, we need to acquire Wiggins because we view him long-term. We'll take a flyer on Moses Moody, and we're going to lose Gordon Hayward and Cody Martin probably sometime in the next year and a half, 2 years anyway.
Yeah. And I guess my thing with like the Wiggins thing is like it's kind of weird because it's the same thing where it's like, I guess I don't know what the team is expecting when they're trading for him, right? Like, I'm kind of like looking around because I'm like, there's got to be a better team than Charlotte, you know? But then I look around the league and I'm like, well, like, do people see Andrew Wiggins as someone who can help? Or do they see him as like a straight toxic asset with maybe a little bit of upside where you could like bet on him to like kind of...
It's almost like historically we have a precedent for this.
What are you going to say?
Andrew Wiggins when he was on the Minnesota Timberwolves getting traded.
I see. Okay, yeah. I was trying to think of another player, and I'm like, no. Okay.
But in that scenario,
yeah,
they got a first-round pick for taking on the Andrew Wiggins contract.
That's true.
And now we're talking about like Slater saying like they probably won't even have to give up a first. And I think this actually comes back to what we were talking about before. This is more about teams not having things to trade for players. Someone tweeted that like there's like 5 teams own like 70% of the draft capital.
Yep.
And it's like if like that many teams own that much of the draft capital, like whether it's a team like the Hornets or it's a team like the Mavericks that just has nothing to trade, then I think it might make some sense to get Wiggins on a flyer because it could have long-term upside. It could also be the worst contract in the NBA and completely suck. As someone pointed out, they sent into the Discord earlier, what has he played? 1,400 minutes this year, Andrew Wiggins? In 1,400 minutes, he has 14 steals. That's like gotta be crazy. Some sort of like record. That is like a crazy low amount of steals. And some of the things in Wiggins, I know he's played a little bit better recently, but some of the indicators, like early in the season, the shooting and finishing numbers, the steal, the stock rates, those are indicators of declining athleticism. And like, if you're taking on this contract, which by the way, like, look, at the time when it was announced, we thought this contract was like a steal. We were like, wow, that's a good contract for the Warriors for Andrew Wiggins. And now it's like, can they even dump this contract? On the next 4 years, Andrew Wiggins is making, so after this year, he makes 24 this year, then he makes 26, 28, and he has a player option for 30 million in 2026, 2027. So it's not a completely like there's a lot of downside to this is what I'm trying to get at. Like if Wiggins just isn't the guy he used to be and he's just like a bench wing, you're paying a lot of money for a guy who's not going to be a starter for you. And I think you have to be in a situation like, I think at one point we thought like maybe the Bucks or the Mavericks could take the risk on it, but now I'm like, it's just like, if you fuck this up, your window's closed. like that's how bad this trade could potentially go for a team that trades for Wiggins.
Is there something here with the Knicks?
No,
like,
no. No.
You don't think so? The Fournier contract?
No. They're not taking the risk. They're not taking the risk because they could turn the Fournier contract. They can either keep the Fournier contract and they could guarantee it after the season. True. It's not an expiring deal.
That's not an expiring. I forgot about that.
It gives you the flexibility. And also like the Knicks are trying to contend now.
Well, that was my thought. Like, is if you don't have a trade, you could like roll the money over, you know, like get a little bit more expensive. And then, you know, who knows, maybe Andrew Wiggins under Tibbs like figures it out, you know, like with way less responsibility.
I don't think he needs a fascist coach. I feel like Wiggins is I feel like Wiggins needs the opposite of that. I feel like Wiggins needs like a kids club coach in order to turn it around. You know what I mean?
He used to go to Toronto.
Yeah, there you go, Darko.
Yeah, he needs to go.
Yeah, he needs a creepy guy to tell him to smile more.
Smile, sweetie. Let's see
Andrew, why are you always frowning?
Hey, Andrew, hang back. Hey, let's turn that smile. Let's like this. Let's go. All right, get out there. If you had fun, you won. Let's do this, man.
I'm telling you,
Andrew, Wiggins and Barrett together.
Let's
go. Wiggins and Barrett together, like that is
the Reclamation Brothers.
Oh, that would be incredible, man. And could you imagine if it worked? That would be funny. Like I would enjoy that. Go.
If the Warriors want to, I think the Warriors are going to be. Zach Lowe said this, and I think I agree with him. Mm-hmm. I think they're more likely to sell at this deadline than to make trades that will improve them this season. They're so far.
They're done.
How far back are they? Aren't they the 12 seed?
They're the 12 seed. They're 3.5 games back, or sorry, 2.5 games back of the Jazz, who are in the 10 seed.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that's pretty bad. And I mean, given their point differential, like, is not as bad as where they are, but
they lose every close game.
What does that count for? Yeah. But what does that count for? You know,
sometimes it's just not your year. And also, like,
yeah,
if the thing is, and the thing that I've said time and time again is that they don't have their pick this year, which sucks. The thing that I've said time and time again, the only reason you ever make a win now trade at this deadline, if you're the Warriors, is if Steph's like, hey, I might ask out in the offseason if you don't make a move.
They should just trade Steph, by the way, speaking of things like that.
Well, if he's doing that,
they won't if he doesn't, unless he asks for it. But like, that would help them. Like,
if you
get back on their feet quicker.
If you did the Gordon Hayward and Cody, and let's assume Gordon Hayward gets healthy, the Gordon Hayward and Cody Martin deal for Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody or whatever, it would make them better. Like, I think they would be a better now, would it solve all their issues? No, I think their issues are largely that they're just smaller than a lot of teams, and Looney being washed doesn't really help in that department. But I don't know. If I had to guess, I'm saying yes, they do trade Wiggins at this deadline. There are two teams I think that could potentially take Wiggins.
Okay.
Number one is the Charlotte Hornets. Number two is the Chicago Bulls.
Kev's
I mean,
so who are you saying that is Vooch? Like,
maybe there's like the thing is that the Hornets have like, I'm sorry, the Bulls. Oh God, that's a Freudian slip. The Bulls have all of these medium-sized contracts. You could trade. The thing is that if you trade the Lonzo contract, then Steph's really going to be like, "What are we fucking doing?"
Isn't that's fully guaranteed next year?
Who? The Lonzo contract?
The Lonzo contract?
The Lonzo contract's fully guaranteed, and as we've explained before, you only have to pay like a fifth of it. You only have to pay for like $4 million. So it would basically be like, we get to save a lot of money. But correct me if I'm wrong here. That would still go against their tax bill, though. So I think it actually wouldn't really save them that much money. I could be wrong because of the insurance stuff. So that would be a pure, no tax relief. So yeah. So I don't think they would take on the Lonzo contract. But like Vucevic, or maybe if Zach LaVine goes to another team, they're the third team to get back guys. I don't think it's going to be a super positive return for the Warriors unless they find a team like I said, like the Raptors. Like if they went to the Raptors and they said, give us Bruce Brown and we'll give you Andrew Wiggins and a first round pick or something. That's probably the best case scenario for the Warriors. I don't really see it for these other teams like the Bulls and the Hornets, like giving up a ton of good value for Wiggins. But I think that feels like a Bulls move to me. Like it just.
I was going to say, I was trying to find it to put it in the chat, but Kevin saying the Bulls are absolutely stupid enough to do this feels like the bro pair tweet from like 2012 that said Americans are absolutely stupid enough to elect Donald Trump president. Do not laugh him off.
That was 2012 he tweeted that?
2012 he tweeted that.
Wow.
Like during Trump. Do you remember Trump like also ran in 2012, but it was like more of a silly little, like, it was like a Vivek Ramaswamy type.
I don't remember that
campaign. Yeah. But that was I remember reading that in real time and being like, okay, come the fuck on, dude. No, no, Americans aren't that dumb. Whoopsie. Oopsie.
That's what you get for being an optimistic liberal in 2012.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was lib-billed. I was watching The Daily Show. Yeah. I told him, look, we had a rally to restore sanity. Yeah. Jon Stewart said sanity is back.
And it worked.
It worked.
Yeah, we're good.
No one's crazy. No one's crazy. We're not going to have QAnon in a few years. It's over.
Absolutely not. No, definitely not. That's me talking about Brock Purdy, by the way. I feel like a QAnon person when I watch the games and then I read the discourse and I'm like, I'm now a member of QAnon. I believe that this is all fake. Everything I've seen is fake. And the way that he's talked about it, it just drives me insane. Anyway.
Good news, I found it.
You found what? Oh, the tweet.
I found the tweet.
Americans are literally stupid enough to elect Donald Trump president.
Sorry, it was 2011. April of 2011.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really called a shot there. We're trying to predict where players would go in the NBA, and this guy was like, I'm going to predict something that shifts the future of the world forever.
Yeah, Kevin just had similar power. Kevin's comment had similar power. Someone screenshot that for when the Bulls do this trade on
yeah, they're absolutely so okay. Yeah. So this is just crazy. So also, I do just want to point out, so my prediction for Wiggins is the Bulls. I don't know if it's
the Bulls.
I don't know if it's a third team Levine thing. I don't know if it's for Vucevic. I don't know if it's DeMar goes to another team or what. I just, in my gut, I feel like Andrew Wiggins is going to be on the Chicago Bulls after the deadline. That's where I'm at in this.
Okay.
And the other player that the other players, I don't think Chris Paul is going to get moved. I don't think he has a market at all unless it's just a pure salary dump. The other player that they said they would be considering taking calls on is Klay Thompson, which is the first time I think we've ever heard that reported. Sham said it.
Yeah, they feel like they shoot that down usually like pretty quick, like, so that is kind of shocking. Do we think that? Because I remember reading that and it didn't really go through my head because I didn't realize it was like a real report. I thought it was just someone like speculating.
No, Sham said he basically said they're taking calls on Wiggins and Chris Paul, and they might be willing to consider Klay Thompson.
Okay,
like that was more like a, hey, if you don't take this contract extension from us, we're considering trading you kind of thing, I think.
Well, but the thing is, he's way harder to move than Andrew Wiggins. He makes
but he's expired.
Almost, he makes like almost double the money. He is expiring, but it's still harder to cobble that money.
40 million?
It's 43.2 million. Andrew Wiggins makes 24.3. Like, that's hard to do. Like, especially because one of the only other contracts you could trade him for is Chris Paul with 30 million, and he's also on the team.
Challenge.
Like, that's just a lot of money to pull together.
House challenge trade. Challenge trade. Tobias Harris for Klay Thompson. Who says no?
Let's go. Would you do that?
I've thought about it a lot. I've probably thought about it. Really? I've thought about it probably too much. I'll say this much.
Yeah.
I don't think I would do it just because I think if you are trading Tobias, you can get better players that fit better, that don't make as much money. But I do. The thing that worries me about Klay, one, is that he has shown time and time again he's not willing to accept a diminished role. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm one of the greatest shooters of all time. Like, I'm getting my shots. I don't give a fuck. The other part of it is I think that he's going to still want a bag after the season. And he is probably, like, I think that the rumored deal that he turned down was 2 years, $48 million from the Warriors. And like, that's $24 million a year for a guy that's in his mid-30s now. and you're trading Tobias, I know he drives us insane. He played like shit last night. He was coming back from being sick or whatever. I do think that if there's a team that's willing to give up any value for Tobias at this deadline, and you can flip that value for other players, like I would rather just have Bogdanovich. If we're going after a shoot, like if it takes one first round pick to get Bogdanovich, which is the rumored thing that is out there right now, they want like a Kevin Huerter type package because that's what they got for Kevin Huerter. I would rather just trade for Bogdanovich making like $18 million a year than trade real value for Klay Thompson, because you probably have to trade Tobias and a first, and then you're having to re-sign Klay. But like I've thought about it. I probably could talk myself into it, but I don't know if Klay can hold up deep into the playoffs anymore.
That's the thing, is I think he's rinsed. I just think he's washed, and like that's a lot to give up for a bunch of other things. And as much as frustrating as Tobias can be, Tobias at least like has like
say a nice thing about
floor
Tobias.
Skills.
I dare you.
Floor skills. No, he has floor skills. Like I've
what?
Seen Tobias
say a single floor skill that Tobias
rebounding. Like he's a big body. He's like a decent defender.
He does read.
He's got real wing size. Like there's things to Tobias. There's some stuff to Tobias. I also agree that Andrew Wiggins is going to be traded, but I'm going with the Warriors. Or sorry, the Spurs as my
the Spurs. For what, Keldon Johnson?
No, for Devontae Graham and
Doug McDermott?
Chetty Osman.
So just basically a pure salary dump.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, that's what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
If they're not giving up a pick, yeah.
So you think that they're like Wiggins is the guy we want to put next to Wembus.
I think that they don't give a shit, and they have a ton of cap space. And I think that by the time their team is good and the current timeline they have, that Wiggins will be an expiring or 2 years away. So,
yeah, I mean, they don't have good players. Is the thing, is that like all of their, it's basically just Vassell. Keldon Johnson's fine. Trey Jones is fine.
Yeah.
Wembus, and then we'll see with Sohan. I know he's been better recently. I'm still skeptical on his long term.
They're not going to use cap space. You know what I'm saying? Even with Wemby, like who's fucking going there? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Nobody hits free agency anymore anyway. Like, it's actually more valuable to just have a contract that you can move around. Like, and I really don't think Wiggins. I'm looking at Wiggins' contract. It's really not that bad, honestly. Like,
you sure?
It's long.
He's making $30 million in a few years. I know it's not percentage of the cap wise. It's probably not that much, but it's
not that
feels
much.
like a lot.
For a guy who's like been a starter on a championship team, like I know he's bad. He's really bad right now, but like there's worse things to do. Like there's worse things for some of that stuff. Steven has a good point. The cap is not going up as much as we think, but it's still, I'm even talking about right now though. So that is true. It's the length. It's the length that makes it the bad contract, because it is a bad contract. I'm not denying that, but it's the length. And if you're the Spurs, what do you fucking care? You're going to be bad for at least 3 more years. I'm sorry.
I don't know about that.
Even if Wemby's insane, I know Wemby's been crazy, but like, you have to euthanize.
I think Wemby's going to be like a year or two. I think in like a year or two, they're going to be a playoff team.
Not if Bill Belichick Popovich has anything to say about it.
All right, so Sam is starting the Wemby trade request speed run right now.
Not even a trade request speed run. I just like teams aren't that good that fast. Like
if they have a generational player, they are.
I mean, I guess.
Didn't Luka and the Mavs make it to the playoffs in his second year?
The playoffs, but who? Well, they're going to be the 7th seed. And they're going to get rinsed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then at that point, there's 2 years left on Andrew Wiggins' contract after that. It's not that bad of a thing. I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about years and some of this stuff, it's really not that bad of a contract to take on. And there is a little bit of upside with some of this stuff, that like low pressure Andrew Wiggins.
Playing with the generational prospect. Yeah, no, it makes sense. No pressure.
He was awesome with Steph, who's a generational player.
All right, we'll see. This is a Bulls or Hornets.
There's no Draymond.
That was first move. That's my. Also, do we think they trade Klay or do we think they keep Klay? I think they keep Klay. I think he stays. True.
I don't think if they have the balls for it, like Shaq meme. I wasn't familiar with your game.
Yeah.
They do have if the nepotism front office does have the balls for this, but
it is kind of funny to see like throughout the season the reports change. Where early it's like they're going to be aggressive to make win now moves and put good players around, and then as the season went on, they're going to keep the core together. Okay, they're not, and now it's like, well, you might be able to get Klay for the right price, or like it's clear the priorities have changed over the last 2 to 3 months based on how they've played and the whole situation with Draymond being out and stuff, that they are now open to different moves. So, next guy on the list I had here is let's talk a little bit about the Hawks guys. Next guy I had on my list. I know we've talked about the Hawks probably entirely too much.
I appreciate your self-restraint holding the Hawks to second on the list.
Well, I actually had it on the list first, but then I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I'm not even kidding. It says Hawks fire sale likely. And then I wrote Dejounte on the next line, Bogdan under that. I did hold myself back. So the latest slot.
It's like you're like that old play line. The Turk lusts for Vienna. The bro dude lusts for Dejounte.
Hey, I'm telling you, Dejounte and a white guy, the Chiodo plan.
Yeah.
You can trust it. Chiodo 2024.
Yeah, I would vote for Chiodo if he ran. In fact, I probably might write in Chiodo.
He should run against Fetterman. I would definitely vote for him. Primary Fetterman.
Has Chiodo ever been divorced? No.
Do we know that for sure, or is that just a rumor?
No. I'm speculating. No, I'm just. I'm saying because whenever someone's wife deletes Instagram, it means you fumbled the batting. That's all I'm saying. Converting it. That's what it meant every time I fumbled a baddie. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Chiodo has never fumbled a baddie. I'm just going to put that
exactly.
Out there, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the latest slot we have. Well, last week we had on Locked On 76ers. We had I'm not Locked On 76. What am I talking about? Locked On Hawks. Someone basically, like I said, Bogdan was available potentially for like a Kevin Huerter type package. Dejounte, has wanted out. It sounds like he's fighting with fans on Instagram, like DMs and shit with the Hawks. It sounds like it's a kind of an untenable situation. Brad Rowland was the one who reported it. Thank you, Bertz. And it sounds like they're ready to basically do a fire sale at this deadline. So I think everyone but Jalen Johnson and Trey will be available at this deadline for them. And the newest thing we've heard is that Mark Stein has been lobbying the front office and Dejounte for him to stay, which a week away from the trade deadline, very appropriate report to get that, because this is the posturing season where no one wants to trade their guys, and actually everyone's happy with their team and blah, blah, blah. So we'll start with Dejounte. Where do you think Dejounte ends up at this deadline? Do you think he's a Laker? Do you think he's a Sixer? Do you think there's another team?
I think the Lakers are dumber than the Sixers, so I think he will be a Laker.
But the Lakers have also said D'Angelo Russell's recent hot streak makes it so that they don't want to trade him now. Which maybe it's posturing, but also that sounds like the Lakers to me.
It's true. They would also they just put Rui in instead, and it's Rui and the first.
So you're
trading for the first.
But then your whole team is just guards.
Cook? Is this based? Is this Cook?
So Reeves moves to the bench as a Dejounte and D'Lo backcourt.
No. Reeves is playing small forward now. So it's 3 guards, LeBron,
Please look at the comments.
Yeah,
I can't share the screen right now, but it's the Yoda meme. 2:12 a.m. going back for more Dejounte Murray slop. God damn it!
This is the worst slop I've ever seen. This is like it's like the old man who is eating paint. Like that's you. Like just every day, like more Dejounte Murray slop. I don't know, because the thing is, I think the Dejounte stuff. I'm sure they are interested. I think Daryl Morey smells that he can get Dejounte for a really good deal. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing is, I think that enough people are going to be interested in Dejounte that Daryl Morey won't get the deal that he wants. And I think that Daryl Morey is a pervert who likes to win trades and will walk away if the price goes up. So I actually don't think he will be a Sixer.
He drives a hard bargain.
Yeah. But then again, Landry Fields want to go in the cuck chair? Like maybe he has it. Maybe he has a shame king.
Yeah.
And we'll trade with Kyle Lowry, Daryl Morey.
Do the wrestlers have the Nick and Tony wrestler? Do they have a humiliation kink? We will learn in 12 days.
12 days.
On Slopfest, by the way. We're doing Slopfest again. I've had a few people ask. Just assume that's an annual thing. We do the trade deadline every year. We will be streaming all day. So that's tune in, folks.
Yeah, it's an annual thing that happens every year, like the low post Christmas special.
Exactly.
Every year.
You'll never miss it. Yeah.
You'll never miss it. Yeah.
We will be streaming all day on playback for this.
I actually have put in my time off request at work for this, so let's go.
It's locked in now, so
yeah, it's done. Mm-hmm.
So I maybe this is. I've been trying not to let my emotions affect my takes, even though I rambled like a fucking madman earlier in this episode. I went psychotic mode. I do think that Dejounte ends up on the Sixers. I think that. Maybe this is all smoke and mirrors. Maybe all the reporting is fake and they're not really going to make moves. He matches everything that they've wanted. Theoretical two-way guy, ball handler, who gets Maxey off the ball more. He can create for himself. He can create for others a little bit. He's got decent size. He might be able to hold up deeper into the playoffs. I think I have Dejounte and Bogdan written down here. I think they're going to get them for salary filler, whether it's Tobias Harris, Marcus Morris, whoever. Expiring salaries, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington. By the way, did you see the Keith article about this? Did you see the Keith Pompey?
Oh, the one where Morris said expecting to be traded, almost like he would just pretty much straight up said it. Like,
yeah, I didn't really understand this quote. Like, so he wrote an article about Marcus Morris potentially getting traded at this deadline. And I guess because one of Keith's main sources is Marcus Morris's agent that I've kind of learned you just put the pieces together. He's the only beat reporter that's ever written articles about Marcus Morris. And he's done it like 4 times this season. And during it, he basically said, I can't get it to load right now. But he basically said that Marcus Morris was expecting to be dealt at this deadline. Here it is. Marcus Morris is fully aware that a $17 million expiring contract could help facilitate a trade. If the Sixers are able to acquire Dejounte Murray, Morris is all but certain to be moved in such a deal. His salary could be used to help offset the $18 million that Murray is making this season. So he also apparently said in the same day that the Sixers are not interested in Dejounte Murray. So you get both sides of Keith, where from the agent side, it sounds like there might be some smoke there with a potential trade. And then you get, I'm sure, the team being like, we're not interested. Remember, we're not interested in anyone. We don't like players. We're not acquiring anyone at this deadline. So, like I said, I think it's going to be Dejounte and Bogdan, and I think it's going to be one real first. That's for Bogdan. One, the kind of Mickey first that we got, which is like the lesser of the Clippers, the OKC Thunder, and I think it's the Rockets in 2026, and then expiring contracts. So like Robert Covington, Furkan Korkmaz, Morris, whatever, and then I think they get Bogdan and they get Dejounte. That's my guess. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I know that they've been interested in Caruso. He could be another name But I'm just gut feeling right now. I think Dejounte and Bogdan both end up on the Sixers, based on everything they need and everything that's been reported so far. This deadline, and as I've said 100 times, and I will remain until it's trade deadline day. If you want to see something funny on Slopfest, tune in if the Sixers don't make trades. If the Sixers don't make trades, I will be having an existential crisis on air. So that if you want to see me react to trades, that will be fun and cool. If they don't make trades, oh my God, I will be suffering because I've basically tripled down on this. I basically put my whole life savings on this fucking thing being fake. So if it's not, I'm fucking homeless, dude. I'm fucking done, dude. This is the end of me. This is the end of me. And look, betting on Daryl Morey being a huge liar in the media, has historically worked out pretty well. So I'm quadrupling down. They're not fucking. Kelsey's plan isn't real. Fuck you.
You're Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man 1. No, you can't do this to me. Do you have any idea how much I sacrificed?
It will be similar to that. Remember last year when they salary dumped Matisse Thybulle? That was just a little taste of what can happen. On trade deadline day. Okay, so I have Bogdan and Dejounte. Do you have any predictions for Dejounte or Bogdan? You said Lakers for Dejounte. Any predictions for Bogdan? Do you think he stays? Do you think he goes?
I think Lakers for Dejounte, and I think they'll hold on to Bogdan for now, but I think they might trade him
later.
Yeah.
Well, he does have, I think he has 3 years after this deal, after this year. So he's definitely a guy that could easily be moved at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be real buyers for him. He's a really good player. And he fits on a lot of really good teams. So I still think that he is one of the main targets here. All right, so let's do a little speed run here.
Mm-hmm.
D'Angelo Russell, you think he goes to the Hawks or a third team?
Yeah, I think he's the piece in the trade. I think they're making stuff up. LeBron is pissed about the Darvin Ham thing. The season spiraling. They're going to make a move. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like this is smoke.
So do you think he ends up on the Nets, the Bulls, the Hawks? Where does he end up?
Something maybe to a third team. I don't know if they can pull it together quick enough to flip him somewhere, but I feel like he could go back to the Nets. The Nets, I'll say the Nets just because they're probably going to need someone like that, and I think they're going to trade Dinwiddie. So
Cam Thomas D'Lo backcourt will be a movie.
Yeah,
save me a seat.
The Hooper's delight. Yeah, Ben Simmons is back. I don't know if you heard.
I know, and all right, think about historically. Ben has been known as a choker and a folder and not a winner. When was the last time Ben won a championship? High school. Who was his teammate in high school? D'Angelo Russell.
There you go. So here we go. We're getting the gang back together. It's
12 years later.
12 years later. So final answer, Brooklyn Nets. D'Lo's coming home. He's coming home. Where he made his all-star team.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I have stay written down for D'Lo. I don't think they trade him. I genuinely think they think that this heater that he's going on, which by the way, someone sent into the Discord earlier, his 2 to 3 weeks before he got traded last deadline, he shot I think it was 46% from 3. If he's on the trade block, just think just have him think he's going to be traded at all times.
Yeah.
And then he will be great. So that'd be perfect. So all right, so we have I have D'Lo staying. Zach LaVine. We talked about on the Patreon episode that we did last week. If you want to subscribe, we do Patreon episodes every week, by the way. We did the Patreon episode last week. We talked in depth about the Zach LaVine stuff and whether he could end up on the Pistons. Do you think he stays? Do you think he goes? Where do you think he gets traded?
This one's hard.
He's probably the hardest one to figure out.
Yeah. I just don't think anyone's going to give up a package for him. I'm going to say he stays. just because I don't think anyone's going to give up anything of value for him, and I don't think there's enough of a rush to like get him out the door. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I have stays just because I just don't think that they're going to come up with a trade. But if he does get traded, it's going to be the Pistons, and it's probably going to be in a bigger trade where they get back like Wiggins' contract or something like that.
That's depressing. That's a fucking depressing trade.
Yep.
Zach LaVine for Wiggins, and then whatever the parts are that go to.
I think that's what's going to be the trade if it does happen.
So who's the salary?
I'm leaning towards stay with LaVine though. I have to stay here. Yeah, Joe. You could do Joe Harris, Bojan, or Alec Burks, or they have a ton of medium-sized contracts. James Wiseman, they're all expiring. James Wiseman goes back to the Warriors.
Yeah,
let's go. He's coming home already.
People in the comments saying the Magic. I just don't think the Magic are built like that. Like, I just don't think they make those. Like, I know like every front office is different, but like the Magic just don't do this. You know what I'm saying? I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Who was the last big name that they traded? I literally think the only one I can think of.
Serge Ibaka.
That was the last time they did one.
Yeah, and that was like one of the worst trades. Yeah, that was like one of the worst trades they've ever made. So
yeah, and then before that, it was they got Vucevic, but they traded Dwight Howard in that trade. So they were the sellers. They were getting back prospects and picks in that trade. And that's how they got Vucevic. So, and he was like, the Sixers traded him. He was like 20 when we traded him.
Yeah.
So, and my dad still talks about this. Remember we traded Vooch? And I was like, Dad, we got Joel Embiid like 2 years later.
I mean, he's spitting though. Like Bynum, that's like that is one of the worst trades because didn't you guys trade Iguodala trade too?
Yeah, no, it was a horrible trade.
That's like one of the worst.
We gave up a lot of value, but it led to us getting Joel Embiid. So I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Oh no, we didn't get to go 500 for 4 more seasons, and then probably have to fucking blow it up. But no, I do agree. I mean, trading Iguodala was just a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
But I have LaVine is staying, but I do just want to point out, someone brought this up. Maybe this is just because the way that Chicago's roster's set up, but the LaVine at the 3 lineups are always better than the LaVine at the 2 lineups. So that's probably because he plays with Alex Caruso a lot, and it makes the offense and defense better because Caruso can hold together the defense, and the offense is more dynamic when there are multiple guards in the court with LaVine. But it is something to look at. Like, maybe if a team trades for LaVine, they view him as more of a 3 than a 2. And then if that's the case, he does fit on the Pistons a bit better than I had originally anticipated, because then you can go Ivy, Cade, LaVine, and then maybe you have enough shooting at that point. I know Cade isn't a great shooter, but like you hope that Cade gets there, and then LaVine's a pretty good shooter. And then you hope Ivy gets better. And then that makes it so you can start Asar at the 4 and Durant at the 5. We'll see. That's probably a stretch. Just the lack of shooting there is a lot to deal with. But that's just something to keep in mind as we look at this deadline, if they do end up trading for him. But I have it staying. I don't see them being able to dump that contract. Like, I think that contract is going to be more of a stay away for teams than the Wiggins contract. So, Austin Reeves, stay or go? I think I have him as a stay as well.
Yeah. They're not trading Austin Reeves. If they do, they're morons. Like,
yeah,
he's pretty good. Like,
he doesn't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
No, he's a good player.
Like, it'll be fun. Yeah. Kev, Austin Reeves sucks. Let's go.
Well, he's gonna be a Bull soon. Don't worry about it, bud.
Yeah.
So they are they are currently, I just want to put this out, the Bulls. They are the 9 seed. They're 2 games back from the Miami Heat right now for the 7 seed. Which is why I think they're less likely to make selling moves at this deadline than I was. Because if there's one front office that's like, we can make the 7 seed now, and we only have to win 1 play-in game, then we're the 7 seed, and even if we lose that, we can maybe get the 8 seed. If there's one team that won't sell because of that, it's the Bulls. So I actually have Caruso as a stay. I don't think they trade Caruso.
Yeah, probably not, especially if they end up like keeping LaVine. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it's all kind of dictated on LaVine, and I think they'll just be like, yeah, we'll run it back like one more time. Like, who cares? Like,
yeah, they could trade Caruso if they're trying to get value for LaVine along with LaVine.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that they end up holding on if they don't trade LaVine. I think they hold on to both of them as well. I'm with you on that. All right, next name on the list, Nick Claxton. Do we believe the OKC rumors that we heard?
So my Nets fan friend actually wants them to trade Claxton, which I was surprised by. So I don't know. I think he would be one of the more intriguing players on the market if I were like, if he were genuinely available, I would be trying to get him. So I'm going to say no, just because I feel like if he was available, we would be hearing more about it. Like, I feel like they should be shopping that around a little bit more than just Davis Bertans and picks. Like whatever garbage pick. Yeah.
I think it's multiple picks. I think because the OKC has to start trading picks anyway.
But it's going to be the bad ones, I think.
I have it written down. I think he's going to OKC. I think they're going to. I think the way that Zach has shifted his approach, and because Zach does the Bill thing a little bit on his podcast, where like he hears things but he can't say anything. So then he's like, I think they're going to do this. And he keeps saying that about the Sixers, where he's like, I think they're going to be aggressive. I think they're going to make moves, but there's always the chance that the cap space was real. And he does the whole Jerry Seinfeld. But what's the deal with TPEs?
I was trying to think of something with Serenity now, but I couldn't. My brain's too bad at this point.
Amnesty now.
There you go. Fuck.
Got it.
You got it. You got there. That's good. That's really
good.
But
he talked about OKC on his podcast today, and on the podcast he said, I have a feeling that they will go to these young guys and be like, we're good enough right now, and we need to be more willing to be buyers at this deadline instead of getting cute and waiting until the offseason to make a move. So he said that was just his thought, but I think that kind of indicates they might do something. I have OKC written down here for Claxton. The other guy that could potentially be involved in this deal that we heard was Dorian Finney-Smith. We talked about this a little bit. I didn't believe it, but I've now heard it from a second person. So it's possible that could be something that means that it is real. I don't know. We hear a lot of shit, and some things don't happen. Some things do happen. So Dorian Finney-Smith is the other name that I had listed down here. Do you think he stays with the Nets? Do you think they trade him? And if they do trade him, where does he end up?
I think he gets traded. I think Royce O'Neal and Dinwiddie are like probably some of my top picks, those three guys. I think all three of those guys are pretty high on my rankings of guys that are going to get traded this offseason because they all have real value. The Nets all seem to be pretty okay with moving on from them, and they all have a variety of markets with like various teams, and they all make amounts of money where it's pretty easy to like find fits for them on a lot of these teams. So they are some of that stuff. I think Dorian Finney-Smith's like teams. I'm assuming if you think Claxton's going to go. Oh, I was going to say, I'm assuming if you think Claxton's going to get there, then you would think Claxton was going to be part of the Claxton deal, but you say the Heat.
So I think it could still be part of the Claxton deal. I think that they might rope in a third team with the Heat. What do we know about the Heat? We know they're cheap.
That's true. Yep.
Caleb Martin is
underrated thing you got to remember when you're talking about the Heat and trying to predict what they're going to do.
Caleb Martin is going to be a free agent this offseason, and they're probably going to have to pay him a lot. Dorian Finney-Smith is under cost control for the next year and a half. He makes like 12, 13 million, I think. They'll just say, oh, look, we got Dorian Finney-Smith instead. They'll send out Caleb Martin and whatever filler. Maybe the Jovic was the name we heard thrown around as the prospect in the deal. And then he'll end up on the Heat, and he'll probably have some game where he makes like fucking 5 threes inexplicably if they even make the playoffs this year. So Dorian Finney-Smith I have as the Heat. This is based on things that I've heard, and I don't know, maybe they're true, maybe they're not. But Dorian Finney-Smith to the Heat, Claxton to the Thunder. I don't know what the full framework looks like, but I think the Nets getting back like Jovic and maybe Caleb Martin and picks from OKC in that deal makes a little bit of sense to me, but we'll see.
All right. I also think I think he is a Cleveland Cavalier.
So they don't have first to trade, though, is the problem.
They don't have first.
I had Royce O'Neal written down for the Cavs because I think Royce could get traded for seconds and filler, but I don't see the Cavs. I think they have one extremely far out first they can trade, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're trading DFS unless they get a prospect they like or a first round pick. And unless they're crazy about Okoro for whatever reason, they really don't have many prospects on their team that could be traded. You know what I mean?
Okoro is the one that I was saying would be going out like in the deal. Yeah. So it'd be like Okoro and Dean Wade.
I would just keep Dorian Finney-Smith at that point if that's the offer. Like I think Okoro is just like whatever.
And then like I also was going to put in the 2030 pick.
Yeah, but. Yeah, it's so far out, and also like, I mean, if you want to go for a higher upside pick, sure. I mean, I've said I think
that's what I'm saying.
I would go to the Clippers and be like, give me that 2029 first if I'm trading.
That's another.
I would be like, because that's the perfect final guy for their rotation to make them into even a better team. Dorian Finney-Smith playing off a James Harden style creator. Then you have and another wing defender. Like then you're cooking if you're the Clippers, and if you're the Nets and you can pry away that 2029 first, then you have a horde of these incredible high upside picks that you could trade for a star at some point in the future, or just completely tear it down and rebuild if you want to do that too. So I do just want to point out that the other teams I could see being interested in Dorian Finney-Smith if he gets moved are the Rockets and the Mavericks. I don't know what they would be willing to give up.
Hey, somebody see if we can get a Photoshop of Dorian Finney-Smith and a Mavericks.
I just think it would be funny. I think it would be funny if he just went back to the Mavericks. Like it would just be a hilarious Mavericks like Mark Cuban move to make. Like we know this guy, bring him back. He plays well with Luka. Our best forward is Derrick Jones Jr. This isn't sustainable. Luka's going to ask for a trade in the next 2 years if we don't do something. But did you see the graph, the Darko graph, that advanced stat Darko? I sent the graph into the group chat, and it was one line was Jalen Brunson and one line was Steve Nash, and they were basically on the same exact trajectory in terms of at this age right now, Nash and Brunson are like neck and neck in Darko. And I was like, could you imagine?
Brunson's good.
Could you imagine if the Mavs did it traded again? Or just let a guy walk in free agency and they became an MVP candidate in their late 20s, early 30s?
Again, that would be very funny if it fucking happened to the Mavs again. You bet on your silly big white European instead of your small point guard,
nerdy favorite
star hiding on point side.
Incredible. I mean, I would be so fucking sick if I were a Mavs fan watching what's happening with the Knicks. I know they weren't a great fit together, whatever. That's losing a player like that for nothing is just, as I saw with Jimmy Butler, it can set your team back certainly.
I've never been more owned than me thinking Brunson was a Luka merchant. Like I had that completely wrong, and even I thought really stupid to let him walk for that amount of money. like even if you think Brunson's just like a starter, that was like a fine contract for that. Yeah,
and they could have offered him even more before they let him walk. It's just a terrible thing. You hate to see it. So to confirm here, I have Dorian Finney-Smith to the Heat, Royce O'Neal to the Cavs, and then I had Spencer Dinwiddie. I don't really know what to do with Spencer Dinwiddie, to be honest with you. I wrote down maybe Sixers or Lakers fallback option. That's all I had. Those are the only two. Maybe the Lakers and the Sixers strike out on everyone else, and then they're like, all right, whatever. Let's just trade seconds for Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be something like that. Like, I feel like he went back to Dallas. Like, somebody always talks himself into. He's kind of low key a Lindsay and Tobias guy. Like, where you know, is Tobias going to be or is Dinwiddie going to be the final piece for our playoff rotation? Well, these other teams, they delude themselves into thinking it'll work for them. But
it did work for the Mavs, to be fair. They made the conference finals.
I mean, yeah, well, that was Brunson. You know what I'm saying? Like they traded Porzingis for that. You have to remember. Like, did it work?
No, I know.
Like, it's like winning the battle but losing the war. You know,
sure.
Like,
it worked for that season. Dinwiddie shot well for them, and like was probably one of the better stretches of his career, and he like bought into a role. But then they ended up trading Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, and a first for Kyrie, who is not as good as Brunson is now. Which is wild to say that Brunson is better than Kyrie, but that's just kind of the reality of the situation now.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Dinwiddie could like help a team. You know what I'm saying? I think he has fans a lot around front offices. Like, I feel like a lot of rumors I hear are like front offices asking about Dinwiddie, which maybe I'm just hearing things that are incorrect, but it seems like he does have like fans in like front offices. He's one of these like things that like NBA guys are higher on than like our fan consensus. So yeah, and Loser's probably right. It's probably a crypto thing.
Exactly. That's definitely that's definitely what it is. Yeah, it's 100% all the front offices who are into crypto that are like, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. This Spencer Dinwiddie. So yeah, I had maybe Sixers. I had a hard time figuring out. Maybe there's another team out there I'm not really thinking of, but that's what I had written down. Kuzma. Do we think Kuzma gets moved? I had stay. I think he gets traded in the offseason.
Yeah, I think stay. Yeah.
If he does leave, it will be the Kings, I think.
What was that winger thing that like Leonsis like gave them a mandate to get more first round picks? Like, that was fucking weird.
Yeah, what?
Who does that? A, and then B, who leaks that? Yeah. That's the like fucking insane thing. Like,
and also like he's never been this way. I've never seen you like this. What happened? I came from Windhorse said that.
Wendy said that?
Wendy said it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
About Leonsis wants first round picks. So he's finally willing to buy into the rebuild at least. Like that's the good thing if you're a Wizards fan. It's like, okay, cool. We're finally willing to trade guys.
That's the thing is I think that's what it is I think that he's like just painfully stupid and he's overcorrecting the other way and he wants it like out there that it's like, no, I'm listening to you. Like, I want first round picks. I've actually told them they have to get first round picks no matter how bad
they're fired.
You guys like this, right?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
That is such a like owner brain fucking thing. Like reading too much Twitter. Like,
yeah, we got this first round pick, but it's top 28 protected.
Yeah. They've got all
if this
the
team makes the NBA finals.
They traded Kuzma for all their like dog shit fake firsts. Like that Detroit one that doesn't convey for like 7 years. Yeah.
So Bruce Brown, where do you think he ends up?
That's a good one. Man. So he's on the Raptors right now.
Yes.
I think they might hang on to him for aggregation purposes and maybe trade him this summer. Actually, I'm going to go stay, even though like I think he is out there and I don't think that Raptors are necessarily done. But remember, they can't aggregate him now. If he's getting flipped, he has to get flipped on his own.
1 for 1. Yeah. So I have the Knicks or the Lakers were my teams that I wrote down. Okay. The Lakers have been interested in him. They really wanted him after the playoffs last year. So my trade here was Rui Hachimura, filler, and then a lottery protected first. Like, they're not giving up a real first, but like we'll lottery protect it for 2 years, and then if it doesn't convey, it becomes seconds or something.
Can they do that though? I don't think they can do that because they gave up the 2029 pick, right?
No, 2027 pick. It's so far out that they.
But I think they gave up the 2029 pick, is what I'm saying. So I think you can't do the protection rollover.
They didn't give up the 2029 pick. The Lakers. The Lakers have their 2029 pick.
Oh, that's the pick they have left is the 2029.
Yeah. So they could do protections for 29 and 30, and then it just becomes nothing after that. If it doesn't.
I thought they had the 27. And it's the 29. Okay. All right. Yeah.
The 27. You're thinking of the Mavericks traded their 29 pick.
That's what I'm thinking of. Okay. Yeah. You're right.
It's only protected for 1 year, and then it becomes a second round pick in 2028 if it doesn't convey. The one that they traded for Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt and all those, and D'Lo at the last deadline.
Yeah.
So
the rare Danny Ainge not being an absolute curmudgeonly miser. The only time Danny Ainge has made a somewhat fair trade.
It's only top 4 protected though. Like the odds of the Lakers ever being in the bottom 4 are not very, like they're mid and they might be bad, but like they're very rarely in the bottom. Like they had that one stretch where they were in the bottom 4 for like 3 or 4 years, and then other than that, they've been like lower end of the lottery if they're ever in it.
LeBron leaving and Anthony Davis hurt. Talk soon.
Yeah. Yep. Probably, to be honest. So I said Knicks or Lakers. I'm just going on my. If it is the Lakers, that's what the deal kind of looks like to me. I know Rui has a 7-foot wingspan, so Masai will like him. I'll go with the Knicks, though. I think he ends up getting traded for Fournier in a first because he's just such a Thibs guy. And they're going to go into the playoffs with like 10 good rotation players. And it's going to be so annoying to play them because they're just going to have swarming defenders at every position, guys who can create, guys who can shoot. They're going to be a nightmare matchup in the playoffs for a lot of teams, including the Sixers. Like, I really don't want to play them in the playoffs. Like, I think that they could beat us in a series. And I think that the only team that would definitely beat the Knicks is a healthy Celtics team with Porzingis. I think they can fight in any other series, basically.
Yeah, and Porzingis will probably get hurt at some point. So it's certainly not likely, and it's definitely not definitely going to happen. But there's like a non-0% chance that the Knicks are in the finals this year.
That's wild. That's insane. I don't think they have any chance to win the finals unless there's some crazy thing that happens in the West, where the one of the favorite teams get like upset or whatever, but they definitely have a good chance of making the conference finals and an outside shot at making the finals, which is wild. I can't believe I would have ever said that before the season.
Like Porzingis gets hurt, and if Joel is hurt or playoff brain or something like that, there's a path. I'm just saying, like the Bucks, they're better than the Bucks in my opinion. And I don't know.
The Bucks beat them in a series, though. Is my thing. Is like
that's true. That is true. Yeah.
I know that Giannis has had some playoff series where he isn't elite, but I just have a hard time seeing Giannis losing.
Very gentle way to put that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes he's been kind of shitty, and then sometimes he's been elite, great. Like he's a very up and down playoff performer. But the peaks of Giannis's best series are like up there with some of the best. And
that's true.
And I don't know. It's a very boomer reasoning for me to say this, but I think that Giannis would literally be like, "We're not fucking losing to the Knicks." Like, even though the Knicks are really good, like I think he would literally be like, I'm playing 47 minutes a game, and we're not losing this fucking series. So yeah. Anyway, okay, so the last few I have here, Brogdon. I have Bruce Brown going to the Knicks, by the way. That just to remind you. Brogdon, do you think Brogdon stays with the Blazers?
No, but I don't know where he goes. I don't know if I want to plant my flag. Maybe your Philadelphia 76ers actually.
It's possible.
Like the half measure, because I don't think he's going to be very expensive.
It'd be like a fake first and filler for him, and then it's like, oh, we got guard help. Look, and then Malcolm Brogdon's fine. It's just like, I don't know. I would be very disappointed if that were our move, and I don't think they would be interested in him personally. But we'll see. Like you said, in the Dinwiddie mold of, hey, we tried to get someone better, and this guy only has 1 year on his contract left after this, and we could probably trade him at some point if we need to. I said before the game last night when they played against the Blazers, I was like, I kind of think that Malcolm Brogdon is just the Tobias Harris of guards, where he feels really good until he's on your team, and then you're like, And then he dropped 24 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds on 10 of 14 shooting against the Sixers. Now, Maxey and Embiid were out, but it was just still, it was very funny. I was like, all right, this is the karma I get for calling him the Tobias Harris of guards. He absolutely destroyed us last night. So, and then the last two I have here are Tobias Harris, stay or go.
You're stuck with him, baby.
Yeah, I have stay, but I wrote maybe the Pistons. But I think he stays through this deadline.
Yep.
Yep. Very pumped for the playoffs.
I don't know. Maybe this is like it's so funny. It's like you're Brogdon. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Except
like,
we've had him for 6 years. Imagine if Malcolm Brogdon was on the Celtics for you had Malcolm Brogdon for 1 year and you're like, I'm sick of this. We had Tobias Harris for 6.
But we also had Cantor, which would be like Tobias leaving and then coming back.
That's pretty bad. But that's also like it's so funny to me because like
Celtics and we traded Bane for that. And we traded Desmond Bane.
Pretty tough.
Yeah.
But the Celtics fans love to reflect on their disaster year, which was like literally 6 months of bad basketball.
Yeah.
Like every other team has like multiple seasons. They're like, oh my God, everyone was injured. Like that was like the COVID year where you guys had everyone out of the lineup, and then you were still the 7 seed.
Yeah. Tristan Thompson just kept giving everyone COVID because he like could not stay out of the clubs.
Yeah. Sam, I'm so impressed. We had Ennis Freedom for 6 months twice.
I would rather be the Detroit Pistons than have to go through that again. Genuinely. You have no idea how awful it is having that man on your team. You have no idea. Pistons fans don't know how good they have it.
You're unbelievable.
The Pistons are closer to a title than the Boston Celtics are right now, with loser Jason Tatum at the front.
You're unbelievable. The last one I had written down here is Tyus Jones.
Ooh.
I just said Orlando Magic.
Oh, that's a good one.
They need guard help. Vagberg really wants him. He's been a good pick and roll guy this year. He's shooting a career high from 3. And they need guard help really badly.
And they have a lot of size. They have a lot of size to put behind him too. So like even though he's like cannot defend at all, like it hurts them less than it might some other teams. So yeah, I think that makes sense. You know what? I'm going to join you on that one. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah,
Magic. Yeah, and then if I had one last line here, if you want for this one, just a random player that isn't in rumors right now that you think could possibly be traded at this deadline. That isn't like heavily rumored, I should say. Like maybe you heard a report here or there, but like, yeah, Jason Tatum's a good one. Will, I agree.
Jason Tatum. Boy, someone who's might be traded at the trade deadline who's not.
Bert says Marcus Smart.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Vince Williams Jr. is replacing him.
Wow.
Someone says Lauri Markkanen as another one.
Markkanen, I don't know. Like,
damn it! Will stole mine. I had it written down. Cam Johnson. I think if the Nets trade pretty much everyone, they're going to trade Cam Johnson, and I think that they'll get like 2 first-round picks for him, and like maybe another. Like I think that teams will really value him.
I again, like if the they should fucking trade for Jared Allen back. They should trade Cam Johnson for Jared Allen back. Like,
let's go. Why would the Cavs do that? Now Jared Allen's like he's gonna be the guy that makes 3rd-team All NBA now that fucking Joel can't make it.
Yeah, I guess that's
even
true.
Though it's positionless, so he probably won't. But yeah,
I don't know. I always get the impression that the Cavs are always going to believe in Mobley over him, which is silly. Mobley's a fraud. Talk soon. Sure, I called him KG. Sure, I said he was KG during his rookie year. I can't be held accountable for what I said.
We didn't have the podcast then, so
so it's fine.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, you weren't on the podcast at least.
Yeah. Let's say Larry Nance Jr.
Let's go. That was the most random name you could think of.
I don't know. Let's just say I was looking at the Pelicans roster. I'm like, which of these guys do they not really need, but is good enough to like be able to like use to make an upgrade? And let's just say Larry Nance Jr. I don't know.
All right. So we'll see. 12 days away, or not even 9 days away. What am I talking about? 9 days away.
Real quick, did you see Zion had some quote about being awesome playing in Boston, and like Celtics fans were like saying like he's a Celtic, you know? And I was laughing because like Zion the mental health impact of Zion playing on a Northeast team, whether it be Boston, New York, Philly,
God, no way.
like any of those teams,
No.
like he would not survive, man.
No.
They would be demons to him.
Yeah.
Like WEEI producers would clear out the A block every day to like bust his ass. Like they would be doing the he's done miracles. They would be like, that's like Drake video where he's handing out money to everyone, you know, like, but for
God's plan.
God's plan. It's like God's plan, but for radio producers, like sports radio producers would be Zion getting traded to like a Northeast team. Like I was like, Zion, you don't want to be out here, man. Like you really don't. Like go to a California team where they'll like threaten to fight each other for your honor. You don't want to be in the Northeast where everyone's mean.
That's incredible. Yeah. You're totally right, though. That would be, oh my God, are you kidding me? Imagine Mad Dog on the air. Just fucking every day he gets to talk about Zion. Oh my God, dude.
Francesa would eat, man. He would he would go Super Saiyan 2 in the booth. Like it would straight just, up. Yeah.
It would be the James Worthy, him lighting up a cigar.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Oh, that was killing me though. Right. It was really fun.
Oh, well, my thing fell over here. So we got to get out of here anyway. So go Pacers. Yeah. They're playing against the evil team tonight. So obviously we'll be rooting for our Indiana Pacers.
Already beat them once.
If they lose tonight, it will be the first team that lost the season series. The Celtics have beat every other team in the season series except for the Pacers, I believe.
Yep.
So
this is big game for the Pacers tonight. Okay. However, Porzingis is playing, so unfortunately, will not happen. But we'll see.
Take care.
Bye.